What's up, guys? So I complain about this every year, so it's that time of year again. Daylight fucking savings. I'm going to complain about this a little bit, but I thought this time I might actually try and be a bit fair. So I have actually found a website that I've got on my tablet in front of me for the pros and cons, and we're going to go through what they say the pros and the cons are, and we'll decide for ourselves if they're really a pro or a con. So let's get into it. Alright, so I've got a website up, like I said, and it starts off with a pro. I will read you what it has written here first, and then I will come at it with whatever counteracting arguments I have personally. Again, this is how it affects me personally, is why I'm complaining. All of its pros and cons and stuff, as far as a concept, is up for you to decide whether or not you think it's a good thing or a bad thing. So, first pro, longer evenings. It does say here, changing the clocks does not create extra daylight, but it causes the sun to rise and set at a later time by the clock. And when you consider that a working day goes by the clock, not by the sun, so daylight savings moving the hours forward or back or whichever way they go, work is still going to be between 9 and 5. So it says here, when we spring forward an hour in spring, we add 1 hour of natural daylight to our afternoon schedule. Proponents of daylight saving time argue that longer evenings motivate people to get out of the house, and that extra hour of daylight can be used for outdoor recreation and physical exercise, physical activity. So things like golf, soccer, baseball, running. Here, where I live, swimming, surfing, bike riding. There's a beautiful bike riding track just up from my house, right next to the soccer field, coincidentally. There's a park like 2 blocks down from my place with swings and stuff. I'm not sure if it's because of the school holidays or because of daylight savings. Might be the school holidays, but I've seen a lot of people engaging in those sorts of activities of late, where normally I can go for a 2-3 hour walk and really not come across anybody at all. So definitely motivating people there. I agree. And in this way, daylight savings times counteracts the sedentary lifestyle of modern living, where you sit down and you funnel all the world events and entertainment into your living room via your television set. Also says here that the tourism industry profits from brighter evenings. Having a brighter evening means that you're more likely to have people go shopping and going to restaurants, going to other events like the cinema and stuff, helping to boost the local economy, because nobody really wants to be out that late. We all have work and other commitments that we have to adhere to in our lives, and so the tourism industry and the entertainment industry particularly, whenever people are looking to cut things out of their budget because they cannot afford the more essential things, they are generally the first things to go. People won't travel, people won't go to entertainment events, that sort of thing. So they are definitely helping to boost the economy in that regard. is definitely going to be a good thing. So in both of those senses, on sort of the conceptual level, 100%, great idea. However, is in spring going through summer, when it's the hottest for wherever you live, in Australia, that means that in some of the places I've lived, heat can get up to 40 degrees Celsius for, let me just, Celsius to Fahrenheit, let me, okay, for any Americans watching, that's 104 degrees Fahrenheit. So yeah, it can get pretty bloody hot. Where was I? I was on that one there. Whoa. Okay. Can we? Thank you. The screen went real weird for a second there. But yeah, so it can get really bloody hot. And so having a later time when the sun sets means that there's a later time for the air and the ground and stuff to start cooling off. Yeah, I think there was one time it's been a particularly hot day. I think it was like 36, 37 degrees Celsius. I'm not gonna check again. It'll be somewhere around the 100 mark for Fahrenheit. But what's they saying? Yeah, so it had been a really hot day, and I'd gone out with some friends during the night time. Because it was so hot, I wasn't wearing shoes. And I'm talking like this was like 9 o'clock at night. Like the sun was well and truly down. And the road was still hot. Still to the point where it may as well have been daylight, because it and then as we were driving, you could see if there'd been rain, you could see the water still evaporating up off the road as well. Yeah, all sorts of fun things because summer's too hot. I think I've said this before in one of my rants about this. I'd much prefer daylight savings if it was in winter. An extra hour of daylight and warmth in winter, I think we can all appreciate, but no dice. A con here, it says it doesn't save energy. So when it was introduced like a century ago, more daylight was a good thing because it meant less use of artificial light, helping to conserve and save energy. With today's society having computers, TV screens, air conditioning units, all of our electronic devices constantly being plugged in at night and needing to be charged, we're not really using less energy, even if we still do have our light turned off. So yeah, it does have a little point here that says when Indiana decided to introduce daylight savings in 2006, a study found that the measure actually increased energy use in the state. So daylight savings, while it might have originally been intended to reduce the amount of artificial light being used, actually increases the amount of energy being used and consumed because of all the other things that we're turning on. A pro, less artificial light. This point does still stand sort of on its own despite being related to the energy use issue, simply because of the fact that yes, the sun is up longer so we are not turning on our artificial lights until later. And if you were still going to bed at the same time by the clock, then you are actually using less artificial light on a conceptual level. It says here, one of the aims of daylight savings is to make sure that people's active hours coincide with daylight hours so that less artificial light is needed. This makes less sense close to the equator, where the amount of daylight does not vary much in a year, or near the poles, where the difference between winter and summer daylight hours is very large. It can get to a point where some places in like Scandinavia and the northern end of Russia, Greenland, northern end of Canada, those sorts of places, sort of close to the Arctic Circle, they'll only get a couple of hours of daylight, and then the rest is all dark. So most of their business hours are during the dark anyway. And obviously, as it said there, near the equator, you basically split 50-50 a day and night anyway. So it doesn't really affect you too much there. So you're still going to be using the same amount either way, with the sort of Arctic and Antarctic circles using more in winter and less in much less in summer, etc. However, at latitudes between the extremes, adjusting daily routines to the shifting day length during summer may indeed help to save energy. Now, as I've just mentioned, light is only one of the things that we use in modern society. We still have all of our televisions, microwaves, dishwashers, all sorts of things that run on electricity. I know for a fact in our household, the dishwasher goes on just before the last person goes to bed, pretty much, so that when we wake up in the morning, there are fresh, clean bowls in the dishwasher, ready to go. You open up, and on the bottom drawer, bowl, spoon, you're ready for breakfast. So that's going. If some of the clothes are still wet, we'll use the dryer to dry the clothes, so that'd be going, because then that way it's not taking up any other time where we could have been using natural light, and sort of the hot air to dry dishes, etc. Leaving us the ability to actually go and be more active during the day, because of all the chores can be done by machines at night. So yes, artificial light, no reduced energy. Con, it can make people sick. Now, I think this is a good one. I didn't actually know this one, but I have had a quick read through it already, and I'm going to be using this as one of my main points from now on as to why it's such a bad idea. Changing the time, even if it's only by 1 hour, disrupts our body clocks and or circadian rhythms. For most people, the resulting tiredness is simply an inconvenience. For some, however, the time change can have more serious consequences. There have been studies done that link the lack of sleep at the start of daylight savings to things like car accidents, workplace injuries, suicides, and miscarriages, which obviously we don't want any of those things to be happening, but they are, there is a link, whether it's a correlation or a causation. Obviously, you'd have to actually look up those studies to find out what they call it, but there's definitely a correlation between shifting times and the resulting tiredness that gives people, and the amount of car accidents, workplace injuries, suicides and miscarriages. The early evening darkness after the end of daylight savings period is linked to higher rates of depression. So obviously that'd be where the suicides and stuff would come in, having depression, alters the body's chemical balance, which, if anyone is still sitting on the mental illness isn't real at all in your head seat, they do actually affect the chemical balances in your body. As someone who has depression and anxiety, have a strong feeling it's partly to blame for my fits, as well as beginning of the year when it was summer and I started having my fits, it was still daylight savings time, and I had been doing overnights during a heat wave, so not sleeping during the night when it's cool enough to, because I was working. Trying to sleep during the heat of the day was impossible without this thing on setting 4. It only has 3 settings, the 4th one being off, so impossible to do. And I think that, combined with the altered chemical state of my body because of mental illness, could have led to the surge of electrical activity in my brain, which then caused me to black out and have a seizure. That's my current theory. So yeah, but we're working on it as it comes. The risk of suffering a heart attack is also increased when daylight savings begins. However, the extra hour of sleep we get at the end of daylight savings has in turn been linked to fewer heart attacks. So during it, your heart's more at risk. After it, when you're able to sleep more, you're less at risk. So why not just stay less at risk the entire year and allow us to continue having more sleep? There's even a link here. I will link this entire article, by the way, in the description down below. Under this one, there is a link that says how daylight savings affects your health. If you want to go and follow that link on your own, that is completely up to you, but I will definitely myself be having a read of that, and if I find anything good, I may even make another video about it. We will see how we go. The next pro is lighter equals safer. Safety is a good argument for keeping the lighter evenings of daylight savings. Studies have found that daylight savings contributes to improved road safety by reducing pedestrian fatalities by 13% during dusk and dawn hours. Another study found that a 7% decrease in robberies following the spring shift daylight savings. Obviously, being able to see more means that the criminals that hide in the dark are less likely to be out while you are, if you are still operating by the clock of when you go for a walk, for instance, as well as being able to continue to sleep in a little bit longer and still go for a morning walk at just a later hour, means that you are obviously going to be seen better by cars rather than going for a walk while it's still dark in the pre-dawn hours and potentially not being seen. I mean, another part there is what you're wearing when you go for a walk. I have personally noticed that, particularly with like training pants, they're always black, and obviously wearing those when you want to go for a walk, because they're your exercise clothes, does actually make you harder to see, however. So obviously, yeah, lighter is safer, and on a conceptual level, again, this works. In reality, up to the individual to be aware of their own safety. If you are going to be exercising in those hours, be cautious of road users. If you're going for a ride or a walk, or whatever, near roads, particularly if it's like a road that you think, oh, no one ever comes down this time of the day, just be careful, because you might go to cross without looking, and it'll be that one day that someone comes speeding along doesn't see you around a blind corner or over the crest of a hill and you get taken out. So again, it comes down to the individual to be aware of their own safety in that regard, as well. I mean, crime rates are going to be crime rates, so there's not really much you can do about that. Last con for this, however, is that it costs money. It's hard to determine the economic cost of the collective tiredness caused by daylight savings, but studies have found that there is a decrease in productivity after the spring transition. The city of New York invested $1.5 million in a dusk and darkness safety campaign for the daylight savings change for the fall of 2016. And there's an extra cost in building daylight savings support into computer systems and keeping them maintained, as well as manually changing clocks. So it does take time and effort and money to continually have daylight savings year after year. So we'd actually be saving money there, however then that goes into conflict with the longer evenings giving us an increase in economic spending. What I think should probably happen is if daylight savings wants to be a thing during summer, let it be, but let's just not change the clocks back when we go to winter. We'll keep those long evenings, with the days being shorter in winter. Obviously, waking up at that later hour, the sun's going to be rising around then anyway, because the night's going to be longer, and you'll still have most of your daylight hours to work with before it gets dark again. And obviously in winter when it gets dark, you want to be inside where it's warm, so being able to do more things during winter, and then when it comes into summer, being able to I think if daylight savings needs to be a thing, it needs to be the permanent thing and no longer be called daylight savings. It just be called time. But that's all I've got for my rant. Again, this link is in the description down below. If you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Make sure to hit the subscription button and the notification bell if you want to see when I upload new videos and be notified when I do so. My social media links are in the description down below. Leave me a comment on your thoughts about daylight savings, and yeah, definitely make sure you check out this article again, read it for yourself if you want to, as well as there's a whole heap of links in this as well, so if you want to see more in depth, definitely go check out the link in the description as well. But until next time guys, night to A2, and I'll check you all later.